For cheap gold, items and other boosts for Diablo 4, visit aoeah.com. Check out the link in the description, you get 3% off with the code ARIAT. Hello and welcome to my ultimate Blood Barb guide. We will discuss most important points about blood builds in general, and I have built 3 different examples for you. The planar links are in the description below. At the end of this video, I will also show the Bash Blood Barb I play, which has 2 different settings, a tanky one and the other for maximum damage. But let's start with the basics. Bleeding damage is physical damage over time, and we can measure the ticks per second. You can stack more bleeding damage by further attacking, so the damage ticks get higher and higher. But like all DOT, it cannot critically strike or overpower, so it's always just white numbers. You can inflict bleeding damage on several ways. Attacks like the basic skill Flay or the core skill Rend automatically do bleeding damage, and Whirlwind has an extension to make enemies bleed when using a slashing weapon. But you can also use Berserk Ripping aspect to inflict bleeding damage by any attack, or the two-handed sword mastery. In this case, you need some high damage on your attack, this will also increase the bleeding. You should also know the skill Rupture. You can use it to burst all the bleeding damage that is stacked on a target at once, so that can be very powerful. But you can also just Rupture for the attack speed bonus from its skill enhancement, so I also often use it as an entry move. You might think that the FX damage over time is popular for blood builds, but there are much more efficient ways to stack bleeding damage. First, you should know the key passive Gushing Wounds. It adds a massive bleeding damage bonus, 140% of your critical strike damage, and the chance to trigger that effect is equal to your critical strike chance. That's why we want to stack many critical strike damage and crit chance on the equipment. So for that reason, the Grandfather, who has become a bit unpopular, is very useful here. You can also benefit from having a Rogue, just for tempering critical strike damage or damage to vulnerable on your weapons. This leads us to another important multiplier, the Hemorrhage board's legendary node in the Paragon system. It's another multiplicative bonus, so we also want to stack vulnerable damage as high as possible. It's only 15% of your vulnerable damage, but you should not underestimate this. When getting Hemorrhage to 100%, it just doubles all your bleeding damage. Here I compare 2 different weapon settings. Using these weapons with 2 times critical strike damage on them, I get up to 4500% crit damage, but only few vulnerable damage. When changing to those weapons having 2 times vulnerable damage on them, my damage is much better. Here I only have less than 3000 crit damage, but much more vulnerable damage. Mathematically, it's just logical. Adding another factor to the calculation chain which doubles your total damage will pay more than just increasing some multiplier which is already very huge yet. After preparing my items, I do more than 100 million bleeding ticks in fight, and here you can also see a 1.8 billion damage Rupture. So when deciding between crit and vulnerable damage affixes on your gear, there will be some ideal values which individually depend on your build. I guess you could fill a video with that topic, but for the first, it's okay for you to know that you should not forget about vulnerable damage for the Hemorrhage board, and getting up to 100% bonus pace. Adding further vulnerable damage at the cost of crit damage, my damage was getting lower again. So somewhere around that seems to be my ideal value. Then you should also know the passive skill Cut to the Bone. It's another multiplier, and we can get additional skill levels from the amulet. Further, everything that increases your base damage is great, of course, like skill ranks, strength points, aspects and other stuff. When playing a Bash Barb, for example, you will also look for a pants with extra bash skill levels. You will temper the bash damage affix and add Pain Gorger gloves and further aspects that increase your basic skill damage. When playing Whirlwind or Rend, you will use different skills and aspects, of course. Last but not least, Let's talk about stability. No matter if you wanna run pits or fight in PvP, it's great to have much life and damage reduction. So greater life affixes are very welcome, and you really want to temper additional levels to imposing presence on amulet, pants and chest. In combination, this is a very huge life bonus. Also in the Paragon system, we go for many life and damage reduction. The board's flawless technique and carnage at damage reduction from close enemies, Hemorrhage and Blood Rage from bleeding enemies. Decimator further has damage reduction from vulnerable, and Bonebreaker has damage reduction while healthy, so in total that's quite a lot. Also you can use glyphs like Might, Revenge, Martial and Ambidextrous to increase nodes in range, and so increase damage reduction as well. We also can add all damage reduction by Harlequin Crest, Aspect of Might, or maybe even the basic attack Frenzy. Like I said, I have prepared 3 different blood build planner links for you. They all use the same Paragon system I have shown. It's from my Bash Bleeding build. Remember, in the build planners you can't put tempers from other classes, so wherever you see % damage all tempers in my planner links, add critical strike damage or vulnerable by tempering with a rogue. In my defensive setting, I play Undying Aspect on the amulet and use both Iron Warrior and Aspect of Might on pants and chest. For getting more offensive, you will take out Might or Iron Warrior and put Undying there instead, to put Rapid Aspect on the amulet and get in another damage aspect. Feel free to change things according to your taste. I say goodbye, take care, and may the loot be with you.
Follow me. Thanks. Goodbye.